Welcome to Nirmaya Care, where health meets understanding. This video was originally published on nirmayacare.com. For an uncensored, ad-free version of this video and other health education content, visit nirmayacare.com.
You know, when you think about these huge global health issues, where do they even start? It's usually not with some big event, but with a series of small, quiet choices. So today, we're going to tackle obesity, but maybe in a way you haven't thought about it before. Not as a simple lack of willpower, but as the complex medical condition it really is. Okay, let's get into it.
I mean, it's a feeling we all know, right? Putting off that workout till tomorrow, grabbing one more cookie, maybe spending a little too much time sunk into the couch. These things feel totally harmless in the moment, but over time, they start to add up. It's that slow build of habits that suddenly has your favorite jeans feeling a little too tight or leaves you winded after just a few stairs.
And that's the real question, isn't it? At what point does a personal struggle, when it's repeated in millions and millions of lives, transform into one of the biggest public health challenges of our time? That's the leap we're going to explore. So, to really get a handle on this issue, you first have to understand its sheer size. And the numbers we're about to look at are, well, they're pretty staggering. They really paint a picture of a health crisis that's ballooning faster than most of us probably realize. Okay, get this. According to the World Health Organization, back in 2022, 2.5 billion adults were classified as overweight. Just let that sink in for a second. That's almost a third of every single person on the planet. And it doesn't stop there. Within that massive group, over 890 million of those adults were actually living with obesity. So the key takeaway here is that we're not talking about a small, niche problem. This is a massive, widespread chronic disease that's affecting communities on every single continent. And here's what's really alarming. This isn't just an issue for adults. The 2024 estimate is that 35 million children under the age of 5 are already overweight. That tells you this crisis is picking up speed, and it could have some really serious consequences for the health of the next generation. And hey, don't think for a second this is just a Western problem. It's absolutely global. Just look at this recent data from India's National Family Health Survey. Nearly a quarter of both women and men are classified as overweight or obese. The trend is clear, and it's growing everywhere. All right, so we've established the scale of the problem. It's huge. But to really understand what's going on, we have to stop thinking about it as just extra kilos and start looking at what obesity actually is from a medical point of view. The official definition is super important here. Obesity is described as a complex, multifactorial disease. Now, those words are really deliberate. Complex and multifactorial mean it's not a character flaw. It's not about being lazy. It's a medical disorder with a ton of different causes that messes with the body's energy balance. Now, you hear the words overweight and obese thrown around a lot, but they're not the same thing. Being overweight just means you have excess body weight for your height. That could be muscle, bone, water, whatever. Obesity, on the other hand, is specifically about having a much higher, more severe amount of excess body fat. So how do doctors measure this? Well, the most common tool is the Body Mass Index, or BMI. It's a pretty simple scale that uses your height and weight to estimate body fat. As you can see, a BMI from 25 to just under 30 is considered overweight. Anything over 30 is classified as obesity, and that's broken down into 3 classes that get more severe. Now, it's not a perfect measurement for every single person, but it's a really solid way to assess health risks across big populations. So, if it's a disease, what is actually happening inside the body? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is this invisible internal battle that's being fought by our hormones. It's a fight a lot of people don't even realize is going on. Let's start with a hormone called leptin. Our fat cells make it, and its job is to tell our brain, hey, we're full, you can stop eating now. Simple enough, right? But with obesity, the brain can actually become resistant to that signal. It's like the message is being sent, but the brain's phone is on silent. The result? The body thinks it's starving and cranks up your appetite, even though it has plenty of fuel in the tank. And on the flip side of that coin, you've got ghrelin, often called the hunger hormone. And in a really cruel twist, things like chronic stress and not getting enough sleep, which are pretty much staples of modern life, can actually ramp up ghrelin production. And that makes food seem way more appealing and those cravings way harder to ignore. And speaking of stress, let's talk about cortisol. When we're stressed out all the time, our bodies are just flooded with this stuff. High cortisol doesn't just make us crave high-calorie comfort foods. It also specifically tells the body to store fat right around the abdomen, or the belly, which is linked to a whole host of other health problems. So it's pretty clear there's this intense biological battle going on inside. But that's still not the whole story. Obesity really comes from this whole tangled web of causes. And believe me, it is so much more than just what you put on your plate. This chart gives us a really good bird's eye view. It shows that obesity isn't caused by just one thing. It's a mix of our daily habits, our stress levels, our genetics, other medical conditions, and even certain medications we might be taking. The exact mix is different for everyone, but it gives you a sense of all the different angles we need to look at.
Let's break that down a little. You've got the lifestyle stuff, right? Not enough physical activity, eating too many processed foods. We've got poor sleep, which we know messes with our hunger hormones. Then there are medical conditions like PCOS or an underactive thyroid that can throw your metabolism out of whack. Even certain common medications like some antidepressants or steroids can play a role. And on top of all that, some people just have a genetic blueprint that makes them more likely to gain weight. It's really a perfect storm of factors.
So when you see how complex this is, it makes perfect sense that the solution isn't as simple as just eat less, move more. The path forward really has to be holistic, one that tackles all the different pieces of this puzzle. Okay, so diet is obviously a huge piece of this, but it's about the quality of the food, not just the quantity. This guide gives a pretty simple way to think about it. On one side, you want to focus on eating more whole foods, vegetables, fruits, lean proteins. On the other side, try to eat less of the ultra-processed stuff, sugary drinks, and refined grains. The big idea here is to nourish your body, not to starve it.
And diet has to go hand in hand with other big lifestyle changes. Getting regular activity, making sure you get more than 7 hours of sleep to help keep those hormones in check, finding healthy ways to manage stress, even things like limiting screen time can help, and maybe most importantly, having a support system like your family makes a world of difference.
We've covered the science, the stats, and the strategies. But honestly, the most important part of this entire conversation is remembering that behind every single one of those billions of data points, there's a person.
This is so important. A person's health is incredibly complicated. Their weight or their body size is just one tiny piece of a much bigger picture. You can't see their efforts, their internal hormonal struggle, or their overall well-being just by looking at them. We have to look beyond the surface.
And that brings us to the final and honestly the most powerful idea of all. For a medical condition that's rooted in complex biology, genetics, and our environment, shame and judgment are not only unhelpful, they are actively harmful. The way forward isn't through blame. It's through understanding, support, and empathy, because a little kindness can be absolutely life-changing. So what would our approach to public health look like if we decided to start there?